Hey everybody, JR from JrZ CarZ, and today I'm going to show you how to replace the sliding door hinge on this 2008 Honda Odyssey. So stick around and I'll show you how to get it done. So I've been noticing a lot lately that, especially on the passenger side, because that's the most commonly used door, that I'm starting to get this where if I go to close the door, if I go to open it, it'll get to a point, you'll hear it scrape, and then it'll bind up, and then it'll reopen itself because it thinks there's an obstruction there. So the hinge is the problem, and I picked up a new one, and it needs to be replaced. And this here is the hinge that we're talking about. So if you take a look at it, you can see it's in two different pieces here. Most times when you buy them aftermarket, you'll just end up buying this piece over here because it has the rollers that slide up under a rail that's behind this cover right here. And this over here is what's attached to the door itself, and that's where your adjustment is. And the first thing you do here is with the door open, you could see that there's a Phillips head screw that's right in there. You're gonna have to remove that Phillips head screw first. And the next thing you're gonna wanna do is remove the tail light. You have these little covers that will go to the bolts, so we'll take those covers off, which reveals two more Phillips head screws or 10mm bolt heads. Okay, and then what you'll do is you're gonna have to pull the tail light out, but you might have to hit it with your hand to get the clip to release. So wiggle it a little bit. There we go. And we'll just lay that off to the side. Now what we need to do is to remove this 10mm bolt right here. And then all we'll have to do is just push the cover here forward. Slide it out. Just watch out because you're going to scratch the crap out of it, apparently, like I did. All right, so here you can actually see the mechanisms of the door and how it works. So there's a cable that goes through here. There's a motor behind this. It feeds through the retaining clip here, and then the cable goes up to where the bracket is and stays in here. And then when you call for it to open the door, it'll pull that backwards. And then on the opposite side of this, there's another cable that goes to the front of the car. And then when you call for the door to close, it pulls the door that way as well. And as you can see, that roller right there is destroyed, and it's common for these to go bad. And it's not just an Odyssey thing. I've had multiple vans before, and they've all had to have those rollers replaced or the hinge itself. So it's just common with use, and it seems to be more the passenger side because that's typically the side that you're going to get out of, especially if you're in a city area and you park on the street. You're going to open your passenger door to let out onto the sidewalk versus the driver's side and into the street. And here on the new one, you can see how that roller assembly works. You have an inner roller, you have the upper rollers. These are the ones that are bad. And then in here is where you're going to put those cables. You can see how they slide right in. I did buy them in a kit, so it basically has both sides. I'm going to do this one for now and then do the other one obviously a little bit later. But before we do that, we want to make sure that we prop this up on the ground because you only have this roller arm up here. And you have that roller arm down here, which is going to hold the front of the door. Being that the weight of the back of the door is all resting on this hinge here, got to make sure you prop something underneath the door here, which I found that my ramps worked out well because you can slide them back and forth to adjust it height-wise, and you won't have any issues with it. You don't have to sit there and continually feed things in there to make the height good. So that's all set. Now let's get this apart. Okay, so the next thing for us to do here is take these 12mm bolts out on the door to get the hinge out. It'll make it easier to replace and get that pin out of there. But before you do that, if you make some scribe marks where the hinge is, it'll make it easier to put it back in the place where it was. So that way when you go to align the door back up, when you have this all fixed, you won't have that much of a problem. Okay, so the outer one you're going to be able to get with a ratchet. The problem is the inner one there's not enough room in here to get the ratchet. So you're gonna have to use a 12mm wrench to get in there to get that off. All right, so now you can see what we're working with here. Now that the door is away from the hinge here, you can kind of see how the door flops around. Just push that out of the way and get it propped up. You can see you're gonna have to do that. Oh wow, yeah, that's completely gone. Look at that. All right, so now what we're gonna have to do is get these off. Okay, well, trial and error, and to save you from hearing my cursing here, I did this off camera. But what I had to do, instead of pulling it out like that because it's stretching it too far, what I had to do was I had to put the pin in there. I had to get a screwdriver behind it and basically just push the cable like this behind until it came out of the little holder that's there. All right. Now we can easily do that on this side. You can see how that'll pop out like that. And now at this point, now we can pop this pin out to get the new piece on and then start putting this back together. Okay, so like I said before, I got that circlip off of here, right? So the circlip is off. We'll just give it a couple taps with a hammer. Now that pin is coming through. Now that's out. And the piece that we're keeping is this piece here, which attaches to the door. And this piece is the piece that we're replacing. All right, so now that the old piece is out, we're gonna put the new roller assembly back onto the old bracket here. One thing you have to note is this spring, you have to make sure that it's like this, so it goes behind the bracket here, so that way it springs, right? So now we're gonna put pin back on the bottom. Again, making sure that that spring is touching both pieces of metal here. I'm gonna put that in, and we're gonna have to give it a little tap. Line that up over here. We'll give it a tap through. And there it is. All we have to do is just put that circlip back on there, and now this assembly is ready to go back in. Now here is where the fun's gonna be. So you wanna make sure that this cable that goes to the front is lined up inside this channel here. If you let it drop, it could go up underneath here. You gotta make sure it's in the channel. So go ahead and put this piece back in. You can see here, right, how we're gonna put it in. It's gonna go in like that, push up. Right, so it's gonna go in there, and you can see over here in this, it's gonna slide up into that as well. So it's not just gonna be hanging on this one here, it's gonna be all the way in. And then you put that over, so now that's latched up. You'll have a little bit of give here. So now, you have to do the same thing on this side. All right, I'm gonna show you what I'm doing here with this, right? So we can get this out of the way. Get that in there, pull that as far back as you can. Get yourself a pair of needle nose pliers. Hold on to this. Pull it as far as you can. Twist it. Get it in there. And you're gonna have to adjust and play around with it a little bit to get that to line up all the way in. But you'll see, after you get that in there, you might be able to push it in with something else to get it in there. And I have the cable already in there. I just gotta get it all the way in. You can see how it's not lining up straight in there yet. Might be able to give it a little bit of a push up. Get it into place there. There you go. See, now it's in place. There we go. Now, rollers are in there. That's set. At this point, we can bring the door back over to it, hook up those two 12mm bolts, and get this realigned so that way the door will shut properly. But as you can see, that's a pain. You also have to make sure that that line goes back behind this retaining clip right here too. But as you can see, that is a pain. It's gonna take some time and finagling and playing around with, but just have patience and work in a area where there's nobody else so they can't hear you curse it out. All right, so now that you got that all set, you're probably what you're gonna have to do is the door is gonna be in a different position than this because we've been moving it around a little bit. So now that that's in there, you're gonna have to push it a little bit. Just don't force it too much. Just be light with it. It should be fine. Get yourself the screws put in just so it's secure. The door's not going to go anywhere. Now let's tighten it down. If you could see my little scribe marks here that I put, once we tighten this down a little bit, we'll adjust the door to get to where these scribe marks are, and we'll give it a shot and see if everything works right. Okay, let's see how she does. All right, no more screaming, no more yelling. Everything lines up pretty well. You might be able to adjust a little bit more if you really wanted to get in there, but I'd call that a job well done. All right, so now that you know that everything works fine and the sliders work correctly, you're gonna put this cover back on. It's got the 10mm bolt in the back there and the Phillips head screw up there. You'll put your tail light back on. And once that's all lined up, we'll come back. All right, so here she is all lined up and everything looks good. So let's give it one more try. Door opens nicely, no issues. Close it up. No more noise, rolls nice and easy. And closes without a problem, and everything lines up pretty well too. So do me a favor, if this helped you, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop your comments down below because I'd like to hear what everybody else thinks about this, especially people who have minivans, because this is a very common problem. It takes a little bit to get those cables back into place, but all in all, it's really not that bad of a job. Minimal cursing, you know, that's how it goes. So I hope everybody's having a good summer, and I'll catch you all in the next video.